Okay, queue management related to the APIs. There is an XQ create, and the XQ create, there's also an XQ create static. Of course, the static one, if you just want to create the queue and not worry about the heap memory manager, the one you typically use will be this X create queue. Notice when you create a queue, it will send back to you a queue handle type. And when you call X create queue, you're going to give it the first UBase type is going to be the queue length. For example, 5. Right? We had 5 items in the example just a while ago. And then you'd have the item size. How big is each item in the queue? So for example, is it 4 bytes based on if you're writing integers, 32-bit integers in there, then you'd say each item's going to be 4 bytes, and then you'd say how many you're going to have. If there's not enough space, you'll get a null returned, saying there's not enough space for the queue. You'll get non-null if the queue is created, and that'll become the handle that you can use to access the queue. If you want to reset the queue to its initial empty state, simply call X reset queue. Alright, so we got us a queue. We know how to reset it if we need to. How about how do we send something to the queue? We've got XQ send, we've got XQ send to back, and XQ send to back from ISR. Of course, this last one, you know, you'd call that when you're in interrupt service routine. You can use these to send data to the back of the queue, and these do the exact same thing. Typically, you'll use XQ send. Right, so XQ send is the more common one you'll use, but if you want to be specific, it is sending things to the back of the queue. But again, you'll typically use XQ send unless you're in an interrupt service routine, and if you're in an interrupt service routine, you'll call XQ send to back from ISR. So let's look at this XQ send to back, since that's the one that's actually going to be doing the work. You first give it the queue handle. Remember, the queue handle is what you got back when you created the queue. You give a pointer to void, which is the item you want to queue. So a pointer, for example, to an integer if you're going to queue the integer. And then the ticks to wait, how long do you want to wait for the queue to become available? If this goes okay, you'll get a PD pass. If it fails, you'll get an error queue full. Now, this ticks to wait, you can obviously use this PD ms to ticks to specify how long you want to wait for it. Or if you don't want to wait at all, just use 0. That says I don't want to wait, and I'm going to return immediately if it's full. Or if I just want to wait indefinitely, use this port max delay, and that way I'll wait forever for it to be available. Now it turns out you can also do a queue send to front. This would allow you to basically put high priority on a message such that if there were things already in the queue, you could send something to the front of the queue. Kind of like the VIP. You're going to the head of the queue. You don't have to wait. What some of the banks have, if you're maybe a high net worth client, you can go to the front of the queue type thing. Or maybe if you're on the airline and you have a TSA pre-check, you can go to the front of the queue. So XQ send to front basically sends it to the front of the queue. The parameters are the same as XQ send or XQ send to back. The only difference is now it's sending it to the front. Of course, when you get things in the queue, you also need a way to receive them from the queue. So this XQ receive or XQ receive from ISR. Notice the parameters. First, of course, you give it which queue you're going to receive from. You give it a buffer. So a pointer to avoid buffer. This is where it's going to put the data that you're receiving. And then just like when you did a send, when you do a receive, you can decide how long to wait. You can, just like the others, we can do a PD ms to ticks to specify the wait time, or we can set 0 if we don't want to wait at all. We'd rather return immediately if it's full, or if we're a patient and we'll just, we're patient and can wait indefinitely. We can set port max delay. Of course, this guy is going to return either PD pass, meaning you successfully got the information, or you'll get an error saying the queue is empty and there is nothing to receive from. Related to this, you might want to check the queue and see how many messages are waiting. So notice you can call this UX query message waiting. Simply give it the queue handle you're interested in, and it'll return back to you this U-base type. It'll be, if it returns 0, then there are no items in the queue. Basically the queue sitting there empty. Otherwise, it'll return to you the number of messages in the queue.